It is a pleasure to be here today to be able to speak to you about first Wild Gardens, our nursery, and then winter sowing here in the heart of winter, even though it doesn't feel like it. You'll all leave here knowing exactly what winter sowing is and being able to easily do it because it's really quite easy and wonderful way to get seeds started. We are Wild Gardens Nursery, and we are a native plant nursery right in Cortland Manor, just a few miles from here. We sell locally grown native perennials, mostly. That is our specialty. And what sets us apart from other local nurseries and even native plant nurseries is that most of our perennials we raise ourselves from seed. And we, right there on our property, get them started using this method, the winter sowing method that you're about to learn. So in fact, our first milk jugs are out, sitting there, going through their winter and waiting their time to come up in the spring. We are open and sell plants May through June, and then we take a summer hiatus and sell again in September through October. So we're a seasonal nursery, follow the rhythms of the growing season. We don't have greenhouses. We don't start plants early or force them to be ready for the spring growing season. So the plants that we sell in the spring are second-year plants. And the plants that we sell in the fall are young first-year plants. So we just, again, use the rhythms of the natural cycle. The plants spend their entire lives outside and are stronger and better suited for real life once they get into the customer's hands, because they've been started all along in the elements. We also offer some trees and shrubs for sale, and those, the picture of the plants with fall color, those are what our trees and shrubs looked like a couple of months ago. We get those from the Department of Environmental Conservation. It has a seedling sale every spring, and they sell a variety of native seedlings that they start upstate in a nursery in Saratoga Springs, and we grow them in the ground for a year and then resell them to customers as well. The other thing that we're proud of that sets us apart from all the other nurseries that I know around is that we are doing our best to minimize plastic waste, which is the really ugly side of the nursery business, is the amount of non-recyclable plastic that is used to both to raise and to sell plants. So we sell our plants in cow pots, which are made from cow manure, and they're a product of a dairy farm in Connecticut. So we buy 3 different sizes of cow pots. We repot our little plants into those, and we sell them to the customer. The plant is potted in the cow pot, which promptly decomposes and fertilizes the plant. We also sell our trees in bigger pots, which we have scavenged from other nurseries, which turns out have huge graveyards of non-recyclable pots somewhere on their premises. So that's another of our ongoing efforts, is to lower our own ecological footprint as a nursery. There is our website. If you're interested in learning more about us, you can visit us. It's simply wildgardensnursery.com. On to winter sowing. So what it is very simply seeds that are planted in mini greenhouses that are made out of scavenged materials. They are planted outside during the cold months, which allows them to germinate naturally at their own time, when the time is right for them. The method was pioneered by Trudy Davidoff in 2000. Of course, it's not exactly a method that she made up, but she popularized it. She gave it the name winter sowing. She gave it a website, and she acquired quite a following of people who share the specifics of this very simple but quite precise little method of getting started. So the basic idea is that, of course, you put them outside now. And when I first heard about winter sowing and the idea of taking seeds and planting them and then putting them outside now and letting it freeze and letting it snow on them, I was startled, which is the response of most people that I share this with as well. We're all startled, but then I immediately asked myself why I would be startled, because of course that is exactly what plants naturally do. Plants drop their seeds and they sit out there during the winter. And so why should we be surprised that that's what it takes? I think just because we have such a different model and mindset about what it means to plant a seed, that you have to really take care, you have to coddle it during that first time, right? But in fact, if what you want to produce is a tough plant, and especially in our case, tough native plants, you give them tough native conditions. But it turns out it's not just tough native plants that do well in this way of starting plants. You can start vegetable seeds this way as well. In fact, it really is quite flexible in what it allows you to do. So why do it? Number one, it's easy. Next, it is economical. It repurposes recyclables of different kinds. Chases away those winter blues, because right now, if you're yearning to garden, now's the time that you can get started, and it replicates the cycles of nature. More reasons to do it. The seeds don't get washed away, so versus planting them right out in the soil, it does give them a little protection if you plant them in the greenhouse, making it that much more likely that they will all come up. But versus planting them indoors, there's no hardening off process that is needed. So they're naturally hardening off by being outside. And this particularly with vegetable plants, you may know if you've done your own starts that is a tricky process when you start to bring them outdoors. If you bring them out too soon, if it's too cold or too windy, you can lose them all. But for vegetable plants, this method allows that to happen naturally with much less risk. And finally, again, because it is so easy to do. Here are the basics. I'm going to let you look at that list on the right, and I'm going to talk through this list on the left quickly, but then Julie's going to do a blow-by-blow demonstration of all of this as well, so you get all the specifics of it. The classic container to start with is a milk jug, although you can use other containers. The way that you do it is first to rinse well and discard the cap. You won't be needing it. You next puncture drainage holes in the bottom using a sharp scissors or a knife or even a glue gun. I make 4. Then you cut what we're calling a flip top. So you cut horizontally in half your container, but you leave it attached a little bit so that it turns into a lid that you can open and close. Then you put your soil in to the right height. You plant your seeds, you label them, you tape it closed, and you put it outside and you wait for spring. Those are the basics. You moisten the soil. So it's damp when it goes out there. Nature will water to some degree. You might need to water as well. The easiest way is to just learn what the feel of the heft, the weight of the container is when it's got the right amount of water, and go out and pick it up occasionally. And if it feels light, then you can give it some water. So that's the method. Here's the sowing order before we do the specifics. So the things that you want to put outside first are perennials. A lot of perennials actually need some cold, moist time in order to germinate. It's called cold stratification. So again, part of the natural cycle for perennial seeds is that they are sitting out in the winter and they go through freezes and thaws and wet times, and this helps to soften the seed coat. There are many perennials that if you just plant them outside in the spring, they won't come up until the following year because they need that in order to germinate. So perennials should go out first. Now is a good time. Later in the season, hardy annuals can go out. There's no rush on those. And then finally, tender annuals, like if you want to do your peppers and your tomatoes, you can do them in this manner as well. I've done them. They come out very well. They are not the first to bear fruit. If you want early tomatoes and peppers, this is not the method. But if you want robust tomatoes and peppers that you started yourself in an easy way, then this works for that. All right, and in terms of the containers, the classic is the gallon milk jug, but you can use anything that is big enough to allow you about 3 inches of potting soil plus 3 inches above for the headspace of the plant. And at least the top needs to be translucent so that the light can come in. And it needs to be, should be food safe container if what you're going to plant in it is something you're going to eat. Otherwise, it can be really anything from your recycling bin. All right, now I'm going to turn it over to Julie, who's going to come up here and demo the exact process of preparing a jug for winter sowing.
All right, so as Eva mentioned, you take the cap off. That allows rain to come in. There will come a point in the spring where you want to monitor the water, but at least for the winter, this is fine the way it is. The first thing is to have drainage holes, and the easiest way I found, some people use a knife or lots of different sharp instruments, but I find a scissor is just the easiest. So I just stab the 4 sides and give it a twist. And it's easiest to do those when it's still whole. And then I stab the side and use that to kind of stick the scissors in. And then just cut all the way around. And you want to kind of cut it in the middle. You want to have space above and space below. But I find this the easiest way, leaving a little bit of a hinge. And so this is our container. And then you want to fill the bottom. Some people put in if you have a problem with slugs or if these are going to be on the ground and there's high moisture, you can put like a coffee filter or something that will break down, that will just kind of block the holes in the short term. The first year I did coffee filters in everything, and last year I didn't bother. So you want to put at least 2 inches, maybe 3 inches of soil, and regular potting mix is the best thing. For the nursery, we try to avoid using peat, so we use a peatless mix, but really any potting mix. I know you're gonna talk about that, the selection of the potting mix. So, a couple inches of soil. Some seeds need to be surface sown, and some need to have a light covering. It's usually, depending on the depth of the seed itself. And then I like to mark both inside and outside the jug, so I take like a plastic tag. Sharpie will not last. Your best bet is either like a wax marker, like a China marker, or a pencil on plastic. I found that's the most durable. So I do a marker on the inside, and then I also write on the outside, just so that you can't mark things too many times. Like you think you're going to know what it is in the spring, you're not going to know what it is. And then some people use duct tape, all different types of packing tape. I like the clear tape. That's my favorite. And I usually do a small piece just to hold it closed. And then I do 2 pieces. Again, there's no wrong way to do this. This is just my way.
Are you aiming for airtight in that center place?
No, really, the purpose of the tape is just to keep the moisture. So I do one this way, and then I turn it around and do one that way. And that's just, it keeps it closed. It allows you to pick it up by because in the spring, I think the easiest way to monitor moisture is by weight. So if you just run around and kind of just pick up your various jugs, you'll feel some of them are still heavy and some of them are lighter. And I always bottom water. We'll cover this in the presentation. But that, I think, is kind of the basics. Do that a couple hundred times and you'll cover your entire yard.
Alrighty, so in terms of soil, the way that you prepare the soil is to moisten it thoroughly, but then if you're holding it, it feels soggy, or if you can squeeze it and water comes out, then squeeze it until the water has come out. So err on the side of a little less water, because you don't want it to end up soggy. You want just moist. Regular potting mix is what you want. Seed starting mix doesn't have nutrients in it. These plants are going to stay in here, a little while. They don't need to be coddled with anything extra. You just want something basic to get them started in. We use Vermont organic potting mix, peat-free potting mix ourselves. Julie mentioned this, but just to say again, the seeds should not be deep. Most of them you just barely cover. There are some that are so small that they should go right on the top. We have some of each for you, so if you use our seeds later this morning, we'll tell you which is which. But you can also often see just by looking at them. If you can barely see them, then they should just go right on the top. If you bury them, they won't come up. So you can leave space for individual plants, as we're probably going to be doing today, unless you brought your own seeds and wanted to really plant thickly in there. But you can also plant very thickly in these, and that's what we do at the nursery. We produce something that comes up and looks like that on the right. It almost looks like a turf of whatever it is that we're growing. And then in May or June, we tease those apart very lovingly, and they do great. So it is possible, again, for plants to come up thickly and end up doing fine. Labeling, Julie just covered quite thoroughly, but just one piece of warning there is that we've found time and time again that Sharpie just doesn't work. You keep thinking it should, but it doesn't. It will fade, the sun fades it away and it washes off. So pencil is better, and grease pencil is better yet. Jug caps off when it goes outside. There's some different schools of thought on this. We know somebody who puts jug caps on, but we've always done jug caps off. That allows just a little bit of rain to get inside there and some air circulation so things don't get moldy. All right, the waiting process. The important thing to know here is that they won't come up in the middle of the winter, so you don't have to worry about that. And although you are getting impatient, they will come up on their own time. They will come up at the right time for them. And we, growing perennials, have never had an experience yet where they came up and it was too soon and then they died because of some late event. I'm sure it's possible, but we have not experienced it. So your next step, once you have sprouts, is that you take off the lid so that now they're exposed to full sunlight. And you can either remove the lid completely, or you can leave it there so that it's available to go back on for protection. So when we're growing perennials, that's not needed. Once they come up, they're no longer in need of any kind of protection. So the lid just goes away. If you were to be growing tomatoes, say, or peppers, I did leave mine. I did not take my lid away. I left them in the greenhouse for a while because if it's getting colder, then you can put it back on for a while. I've been told by people who've done more vegetable growing than I have by this method that they have never taken theirs inside, not even when it froze, that this method always kept them just warm enough to keep them going and that they were tough enough. I tell you that. This was not my own experience. I just tell you that is anecdotally what I was told by somebody. I did take my own tomatoes in one time. I just couldn't bear to, leave it, see what happened during the freeze. But anyway, you could experiment because the greenhouse does provide just enough buffering to moderate temperatures. So once they have germinated, that is when you need to begin to water regularly. So when plants start, they have roots and they have leaves, then they start passing water, and then it becomes a different thing with a need for watering. And so you can bottom water, by which you pick up the plant and put it in a tub like you would a house plant until it's gotten moist. Or you can make one of these cute homemade sprinkler bottles where, again, if you want to salvage some materials and water them in that way, or with a gentle watering can. You leave them in there. until most of the seeds seem to have germinated. And one thing that you're going to find about plants that germinate in this method, or any method, I think, is that they come up in stages. Some germinate sooner than others. So you don't want to transplant too soon because you may be missing some of your seeds that are still going to come up. So wait until you think they're done. And then when they get their first set of true leaves, you can transplant them. You will find that they have a lot more going on underground than you think by the time they get their true leaves. So these are all I'm not sure what that plant is actually, but the long thin leaves are the seed leaves, and then the little round ones are the first set of true leaves. So once you start seeing those, then it's time to transplant. If you aren't ready to transplant them into the ground yet, if you don't have the space prepared, if you want to wait a week or two, that is fine, or 3. Or 4, they can go on in here generally for a while as long as you keep them watered. So it's not a huge rush to get them into the ground, but they're ready at this point. And then you treat them like any regular plants, like you know how to do, and go on from there.